Hello and welcome to Dementia Diaries. It's been a while since I've been back, but I've been traveling and finally got to a point where I'm able to restart the podcast. So, today, what I'm going to talk about is home care aids. What you need to look for when you're trying to find one. Most of you know that if you've been watching my show or following this podcast, is that I started this podcast in honor of my mother. She had vascular dementia and she stayed at home, at my brother's home in Fredericksburg, Virginia. And one of the things we had to do was, find a home care aide to come in and assist us to take care of her. Although we were there, full time, and I'm saying I have 7 siblings, and, there were times we all took turns and watching my mother and so forth. But during the week, not only was my sister there, but she also had to have a home care aide come in and assist her to take care of my mother. Throughout this whole process of finding a home care aide, we learned a lot of things that may be very beneficial to you all caregivers that are looking to have someone come in and take care of your loved one. So number one, what I would recommend if you're going to an agency, make sure that the agency understands the care and the state that your loved one was in. So initially, when we first obtained a caregiver, my mother, she was walking. She was mobile. She was moving around. She was eating. She was able to go to the restroom on her own. Things of that nature. So the care was really making sure she got her medication, make sure she ate, got her ready for bed, make sure there were no issues with her bathing, along those lines. So, of course, those are the things that we asked for when we reached out to a caregiver services. So also, all of this really occurred during the COVID time period. So it was very important that the aide that came in had been tested for COVID. Very important. And although you may find that you tell these things to the agency, there are times that they may not, follow through on those things. There were several occasions, what I can remember, there were 2 occasions where we had 2 aides come in and they had not been tested for COVID. So we had to immediately send them back. There was the fear of, our mother getting COVID. We did not want her to, deal with that and also have to deal with the dementia and everything else she was going through as well. So, but when we had to send those individuals home, that meant that someone needed to be there with my mother and, was really taking care of her for that time period. Number 2, what we found was that when my mom became bedridden, immobile, she really couldn't get up. She had obtained a blood clot. And so she became bedridden for a while. And then she never really got back up after that, walking around. But when we had to find a home care aide at that time, the agency, we told them that she was bedridden. She was immobile. She needed help, being changed. She needed help being dressed. She needed help with baths. She needed help with food. And she needed help with her medication. So although we told the agency those things, they didn't seem to pass that on to the aides that came out to the house. During this time, what I found was that a lot of the aides that they sent over to the house were young, young adults, young ladies, early 20s, just really working in that craft, not really that skilled at taking care of someone with dementia or someone, that was immobile. Because when it comes to taking care of someone that's immobile, you have to know how to move them, whether it's moving them to change their diaper whether it's moving them to change their clothes or just giving them a bath. So my mom, she was pretty heavy. She was smaller at this time. She had lost some weight, but she was pretty heavy, and a lot of the aides did not know how to turn her. So of course, if you're not turning someone correctly, you're going to hurt back, cause injury to yourself, or just not do it correctly. So as we talked to these young ladies, and I said these young ladies because there were several that came out, um, the agency would send, different young ladies out during the week. Some of them would come out twice a week. Some of them would come out once a week and come back the next week, which is something that we really did not like that much. Because one thing with my mother, and I would assume so with more dementia patients, the more consistency that they have, the better off it is, the more comfortable they are. We initially had an aide that was with us for 2 years. And she became like part of the family. She was dependable. She was reliable. She spoke to my mom. She talked to her. There were a lot of things that she did where she became comfortable with the aide. And then, of course, over time, 2 years later, because she was with us for 2 years, she went on to do something different. So then we were left to find another aide. Now, keep in mind, if you're finding an aide or looking for an aide or even have an aide, that aide can leave you at any time, which means that they are working with you today and tomorrow they can be gone. And if you're not prepared for that, which most people aren't, then it falls all on you. So if you're working, somebody has to stay home and take care of your loved one. So we came into that situation where our aide left us, and we weren't prepared. We were not prepared at all. So what we had to do was, reach out to try to get another aide as soon as possible. And with some of the agencies, it takes a while. During this time, during COVID, because a lot of people weren't working, you know, um, it took a while for them to find someone. So we had to stay home with her and take care of her. Not that we mind as a family, because we did not, that's our loved one, and that was the best thing that we could do for her. But yet, if you were working, it was difficult to work and take care of her at the same time. And the care is like around the clock care. It's not just care from 8 to 5 or 7 to 4, 9 to 6. It's 24-hour care. When you put her to bed, she'll go to sleep, but you still got to watch. You got to watch and make sure everything is going okay during the night. Make sure that she's comfortable. And then, get with her and be prepared to help her in the morning. But back to when the aide left, we had to find, get an agency to find some more. But during this time as well, you have to deal with the different aides that come in. We had an aide that was a smoker. So, of course, when this individual came in, her clothing was full of cigarette smoke, etc. And so, caring for my mom, we didn't want my mom to inhale a lot of cigarette smoke. So we had to talk to her to see if she would, stop smoking or, change clothes or do something of that nature. Initially, when we had our caregiver as well, she stayed for 12 hours. She really worked 12 hours. It was almost like 6 to 6 or 7 to 7, something of that nature, which you're not going to find that often that someone does that. So you can imagine that's why we really loved her so well. She'd be there 7 to 7, and then whoever's home or whoever was there taking care of, living there, taking care of my mom at that particular time would take over, make sure she was comfortable in bed, because the aide would feed her, get her ready for bed, give her her medication. So the only thing we had to do is just make sure that mom was calm, and, that she fell asleep and that she slept well, and watched her during the night. So, but at this particular time when she left, we had to get two aides. So one aide was in the morning and one aide was in the afternoon. But what happened was these two aides, for some reason, could not get along. So there was one time when they were there together and they got in an argument. I mean, it was a real heated, blown out argument that was there, right there in front of my mother. And I was there at that time. I worked upstairs. I was upstairs looking at the camera, I believe, and I saw the whole thing play out. So, of course, I immediately called the agency, and of course, my sister, because my sister had POA and was taking care of all of those things. So the aides had to leave. One stayed and one had to leave. So these are things that you have to look out for and watch out for when you having other people come into your home, caring for your loved one. But yet, of course, after that, we had to find another aide. And so we were looking for one aide, actually, and one aide that was consistent. But like I said earlier when I started, that we were receiving aides that were young in age. I think we may have had one or two that may have been over 30. And they were not aware of the condition that my mom was in. So I was finding myself, I know my sister was finding herself as well, having to assist with taking care of my mom while the aide was there. The aide was not able to turn her correctly, and the aide was not able to change the diapers. It was just a whole list of things that the aide was not able to do. Apparently, the aides that came out later, they were under the impression that the only thing they had to do was sit there and talk to her, take care of her that way, maybe feed her along those lines. But they were not aware of the fact that my mom was immobile, that she had dementia, and she needed really round the clock care, hands-on care. So that presented a problem for us, because although at this time we were working, we had to stop working, go down and assist the people that we were paying for, assist them in performing the job duties that they were supposed to be able to perform on their own. So the reason I'm saying all of this and telling you all of this is because sometimes, people just say, oh, you just get an aide to come into the house. But you just can't get anyone. You got to get someone that you build a relationship with. You kind of build a trust with, because there will be times when you have to leave home and that individual will be there with your parent alone. So you want to make sure that they're actually taking care of your loved one, not causing them any harm. Sometimes taking care of someone with dementia, they can get very irritated. They can get, some of them can get violent. Some of them can, they just, their mouth can just go and just say things that you're not used to. And you got to make sure that aide is able to handle those things and not retaliate. That was one of the biggest worries that I had about my mom. And that's probably why I, like I kept mentioning, we had a camera. And that's probably why I kept looking at the camera all the time, is because I wanted to make sure that she was being taken care of. Now, with the first caregiver, the aide that we had, I didn't have that issue. But after she left, that's where the problem came in, because we didn't know these individuals. We had not built that trust. They had not been around that long. And I knew how my mom could get in her condition. So you have to look out for those things. And then you want to make sure that you have somebody in your house that's not going to take your stuff as well, your valuables. So it's just a whole gamut of things that you have to look out for. It's good that if you're able to work from home, or have someone at home while the aide is there. That way you can build that relationship, yet at the same time, to have a watchful eye about what's going on there as well. So, caregiving, whether you're doing it by yourself or getting someone helping you, I would never recommend, doing it on your own unless you absolutely have to do it. I'm just thankful that we were able to be there at home, and then also be able to, have aides come in to care for her as well. You got to make sure that you leave a book, of everything that has been done that day for your loved one, which means I fed Louise at 8 o'clock this morning. She ate all of her food. She had, say, eggs, a piece of bacon, and a piece of toast. And she drank a full cup of juice. Okay, I gave her medicine at 9:30. What medicine did you give her? I gave her, I'm just going to throw some things out here. I don't know what I gave her. But, you gave her some medication, and you write down the medication that you gave her, and you say how much it was that you gave her. Then I changed her. At this time, she did not have a bowel movement. If she had a bowel movement, you put that she had a bowel movement. Was it a good bowel movement? Yes. Was it a bad bowel movement? No. And you do this throughout the day. I fed her lunch at this time. This is what she had for lunch. Gave her additional medications, gave her a bath. All the things that's needs to be written down. So when the aide leaves at night, you, or either, your relative that's helping to take care of your loved one, can look in that log, can look in that book and say, this is what happened, this is what happened, this is what happened. So then they can easily pick up and transition, for the night. Same thing has to be done at night. If you have to give medicine at night, you need to write it down in the log. If she wakes up in the middle of the night, irritated, hallucinating, or anything of those natures, you write it down in the book so that the aide in the morning can see everything that goes on, and then it's a continual cycle. And also what this does is that when the doctor or the nurse comes through, my mom was in hospice at home, so she had the nurses and doctors come through. So when they come through, they will look at the log and they can say, okay, so I see this is what happened. She's doing this. She's not having a bowel movement, so maybe she's constipated. If she is having like foul smells with her urine, they can look to see if she had a UTI or not. All of those things that you write down is very important. Very, very important. Not only for you and the aide, but it's, for the nurse as well and the doctor, so they can treat your loved one the way that they should be treated. So what I'm offering here, if anyone has any questions, regarding aids and how to get an aid, or necessarily what else to look for, or what do I do, and if this happens, feel free to reach out to me at dementiadiariespodcast@gmail.com, or you can send me a text at 813-894-8617, and I'll be glad to and happy to provide you with some more insight. But I just wanted to let you know that it is very important that you choose the correct aid, and that you really vet the people that are coming to you to make sure that they are the right person for the job at that time. Just because they're an aide, it does not mean that they are trained to take care of your loved one the way that you think they should be. So that's why you have to ask questions and follow up. And then, if they're not coming in on time, if they're late, you definitely have to call the agency and make sure that they send you someone else. It's not an easy job. It's not an easy job for a family member. It's not an easy job for an aide, especially if they don't have the real story or the true story about what's going on with the patient, so that can make them feel inadequate. And then it can make you, a little irritated, but it's really not their fault, um, because they were not told what the job was at hand. So I need to make sure that family members, the ones that reach out to the agencies, that you're definitely getting all of this information and that you're talking to the agencies in detail, being very specific. This is what's needed. This is what I'm looking for. Do you have someone that is able to do this? Please do not send me anyone that has never, taken care of someone that's immobile, someone that's not able to lift a certain amount. Yes, there are some patients that may have a harness, but some of them don't. Sometimes we will put my mom in a wheelchair, but it took two of us to lift her and to get her into the wheelchair, to make sure that she wasn't being harmed and to make sure we weren't hurting ourselves as well. Because for some reason, every time we would try, to pick her up, she would use all the strength she had to kind of go against what it is that we were doing. So all of these factors come into play. So like I said again, this is about home care aides. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I am here, Dementia Diaries Podcast at gmail.com, 813-894-8617. Thank you for joining in and have a good night.